I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, November the 21st, 2013. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned to Israel today after meeting in Moscow with Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday. Netanyahu met with Putin to make his case for taking a tough stance against Iran as talks in Geneva between Iran and world powers resumed yesterday. Speaking at a joint press conference with Putin, Netanyahu reiterated his demand for the full dismantling of the Iranian nuclear program, stressing that the international community demand the closure of Iran's heavy water facility in Arak and the halt of all uranium enrichment. He said, "We believe it is possible to reach a better agreement, but it requires us to be consistent and persistent." Putin said Moscow was optimistic about the talks in Geneva and hoped that a mutually acceptable solution would be found. And while Netanyahu called his talks with Putin and other Russian officials, which lasted over 4 hours, very good, direct, and genuine, Israel's Channel 2 News reports that no promises were made by Moscow to toughen their stance regarding a possible deal with Iran. And while still in Moscow, Prime Minister Netanyahu responded to yesterday's anti-Israel rant by Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, where Khamenei referred to Jews, among other things, as rabid dogs. The Prime Minister addressed the remarks when meeting with Russian Jewish community leaders earlier today. He told the group the Iranians deny our past and repeat their commitment to wipe the state of Israel off the map. This reminds us of the dark regimes of the past that plotted against us first and then against all of humanity. Netanyahu added, "They must not have nuclear weapons, and I promise you that they will not have nuclear weapons." More in-depth talks between the P5+1 and Iran took place in Geneva today. Iranian official news agency IRNA quoted Iranian negotiator Abbas Araghchi as saying today that Iran will not sign a deal with world powers unless they accept its right to enrich uranium. IRNA cited Araghchi's Twitter account where he wrote, "No deal that does not include the right to uranium enrichment from start to finish will be accepted." Iran state television quoted Araghchi further saying the main obstacle to the talks was the lack of trust because of what happened at the last round. As long as trust is not restored, he said, we cannot continue constructive negotiations, adding that there were still major differences between the parties, and there was a chance, though, of a deal by tomorrow. But he added that negotiations were difficult and urged his counterparts to be, quote, flexible and to show goodwill. World powers have said that an interim agreement with Iran could be possible and was within reach. France once again expressed its tough stance regarding that possible agreement. When asked by France 2 television if there could be a deal, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said, "I hope so, but this agreement can only be possible based on firmness. For now, the Iranians have not been able to accept the position of the six. I hope they will accept it," he said. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said yesterday that the issue of whether Iran will ultimately be allowed to enrich uranium will not be decided in any interim deal in Geneva. Kerry said, "We are at the initial stage of determining whether or not there is a first step that could be taken, and that certainly will not be resolved in any first step, I can assure you." Meanwhile, the World Jewish Daily reports, citing the Jerusalem Post, that Israel's new ambassador to the U.S., Ron Dermer, met with a bipartisan group of congressmen last night, where he assured them that there was no crisis between Israel and the Obama administration regarding the Iran issue. Dermer reportedly told the group that the U.S. diplomatic corps had kept the Israeli government fully up to date throughout the talks in Geneva between Iran and the P5+1. Convicted Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard begins his 29th year of his life sentence today. Pollard was arrested on November the 21st of 1985 outside the Israeli embassy in Washington. With this anniversary, Pollard's wife, Esther, said, "It's a terrible blow to Jonathan and to me that all the anguish and suffering he has endured for a full 28 years in prison now continues into year 29. We had such high hopes," she said, "that this nightmare anniversary would not occur again. After all the recent developments, we really hoped that by now we would be recovering from our ordeal and rebuilding our life, that we would finally live together here in Israel and get on with our life together. Esther Pollard urged President Obama once again to commute Jonathan's sentence to time served, especially in light of his deteriorating health, as a matter of compassion and mercy. Israel's Channel 10 reports that police in Azerbaijan arrested an Iranian national suspected of planning an attack on the Israeli embassy in the country's capital of Baku. According to local APA news agency, 31-year-old Hassan Faraji was arrested by Azerbaijani police after displaying, quote, suspicious behavior while wandering around the Israeli embassy on October the 31st. He was later sentenced to 30 days of administrative detention. Faraji is reportedly a part of the Iranian Quds Forces, a special unit of Iran's Revolutionary Guard associated with planning and carrying out attacks against Israeli targets overseas. When police raided Faraji's house, they found plans and photographs pointing to his intention to commit a series of terrorist attacks against Israelis at the embassy. The public editor of the New York Times has apologized for a judgment call made recently regarding an article about the slaying of IDF soldier Eden Atias. Margaret Sullivan apologized in a blog post on Tuesday for making a poor choice in the article about the incident, which occurred on November the 13th, when Atias was stabbed to death on a bus in Afula by a Palestinian teenager. The Times article about the incident shows a large picture at the head of the article of Silwa Jawadre, the mother of the teen accused of the murder, surrounded by family members and photographs of her son. In the print edition of the paper, a picture of the bus where the attack took place was under that of Jawadre, and online there is a small picture of the bus appearing lower down in the piece with the large photo of Jawadre standing alone at the top of the page. No pictures of the IDF soldier who was killed or of his family are shown. Sullivan received hundreds of letters of complaints about the article, to which she responded that the image of Jawadre's mother was powerful but, quote, a poor choice, failing to put the focus where it belonged. She said the choice was regrettable and that, quote, the dominant image with an article should reflect the overall point of the article and the reason for its newsworthiness. She further wrote the selection of the Palestinian mother's image with the article was an effort to achieve balance, but such an effort was not appropriate in this case. Foreign editor Joseph Kahn said that while the Times tries to represent the Israeli-Palestinian conflict accurately and fairly, he said, we don't always get it right. The Anti-Defamation League capped off their 2013 centennial year earlier this week with the 19th annual Concert Against Hate, which recognizes individuals for extraordinary acts of courage in confronting intolerance, injustice, extremism, and terrorism. The concert was held at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. on Monday night and paid tribute to 4 honorees: U.S. Democratic Representative John Lewis of Georgia, who played a central role in the pivotal events of the civil rights era; Jose Antonio Vargas, who's the founder of Define American and an outspoken advocate for immigration reform; Judy and Dennis Shepard, the parents of slain 21-year-old Matthew Shepard, murdered because he was gay, for their work advocating for meaningful hate crime legislation; and posthumously to Daniel Pearl, the Jewish Wall Street Journal reporter who was kidnapped and murdered in 2002 by a Pakistani terrorist group working with Al-Qaeda. ADL National Director Abe Foxman said at the event, "I believe that one person's voice can make all the difference." He told the Jerusalem Post, "Each of the individuals we recognized on our centennial have made a difference through their actions and their caring, bringing us one step closer to the dream of a world without hate." And tonight on Shalom TV, Israeli Consul for Media Affairs Shachar Azani joins Mark Golub on L'chaim at 9, where they discuss the Israeli perspective on a wide variety of issues. That's tonight at 9 here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, November the 21st, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.